All right, mixed martial arts, the UFC. Listen, you know this by now. I absolutely love it. It's by far my favorite sport on the planet. And the storylines, the madness, the shocking scenes, the controversy, all the stuff that goes on around the sport, that's also kind of why we love it. And that's because of the people that are involved in it, the fighters themselves. Listen, it takes a special kind of someone, maybe with a bit of a screw loose, to step inside an octagon, almost naked with 4-ounce gloves on to try and knock out your opponent. Okay, it does. We're not cut from a regular kind of cloth. It's got to be a special kind of cloth. And that's what we have. And of course, when you have people like that, you're going to get some controversy. You're going to get some wild stuff. You're going to get Conor McGregor flying to New York on a private jet and throwing a dolly at a bus. You know, you're going to get Masvidal, 3-piece in a soldering people backstage. You're going to get Mike Perry just being Mike Perry. You know, I had my fair share of controversies back in the day as well.
Are you intoxicated?
Are you intoxicated? So yeah, but that's all part of the beauty of this sport. These wild, unpredictable, somewhat reckless individuals that fight their asses off inside the octagon. So as I say, with people like that involved, you're going to get some shocking moments. Okay, so I'm going to go through 5 shocking moments that stood out to me last year. All right, the first one on the list is Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades back in July in London. Listen, Tom Aspinall's a friend of mine. Lovely guy. Great guy, very humble, hard worker, absolutely gigantic, 6'5", heavy guy. Moves like a lightweight. That agility, the flexibility, and just the athletic prowess that he possesses is unbelievable. But as I say, so down to earth. And so just a lovely family man, a humble dude. He signed with the UFC and was just wrecking shop. Beat Alan Boudreaux in the first round. Jake Collier, first round. Orlovsky, Hall of Famer for sure, former champion. He took him to the second round. Sergey Spivak, not an easy guy to beat. Round 1. Alexander Volkov, main event in London back in March. Round 1. And then his next fight against Curtis Blades, first round. But of course, not for Tom Aspinall, for Curtis Blades. This was a big fight for Tom. Obviously, anytime it's a main event, any fight in the UFC is a big fight. But against Curtis Blades, this was closing in on a title fight, potential number 1 contender matchup. Now, we know the heavyweight division is all over the place right now, but still, he would have emerged as one of the front runners for a shot at the belt. But that is not what happened. They went forward, they exchanged a few punches, Tom threw a kick and boom, that was it. All of a sudden, fell on the floor. Not everyone was confused, didn't know what had happened. And I had to walk into the octagon to interview Curtis Blades, and I will never forget what I saw. 6'5" Tom Aspinall lying there on the ground, clutching his leg, howling in agony. I will never forget that sound. It was unbelievable, as I say, because Tom's such a big, tough, strong man, you know, but to see him lying there, clutching his knee and just howling over and over again, it was haunting. It really was. In fact, it reminded me of when, because I was ringside when Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman fought and Silva snapped his leg. And I'll never forget that. I remember Anderson being stretchered past me, right in front of me again, holding his leg, howling. And I'm telling you, it was a haunting thing. I'll never forget it. But as I say, for Tom Aspinall, it was so shocking because it destroyed everyone. He went out there. I mean, Curtis Blades was a tough step up in competition, a good wrestler, a big guy, a hard hitter, but nobody expected that to happen. And then on top of it, there was a lot of complications. But fortunately, Tom is on the mend and he'll be back soon. But still, my God, that was shocking. Let's be honest. Main event over in 15 seconds and the future heavyweight champion representing England led on the floor, screaming his head off, howling in agony. All right, next up, Khamzat brings chaos to UFC 279 back in September. Listen, UFC 279 was probably the most chaotic card of 2022 and might be remembered as one of the craziest UFC events that ever happened. Look, listen, Thursday, that's when it all kicked off. Literally, you know, Thursday is the press conference day. A lot of people come, they watch it, they want to see the favorite fighters, they want to hear some funny lines, they want to see them go back and forth, get in each other's faces, but they didn't get to see any of that because Khamzat Chimaev is backstage. He's with a bunch of Chechens and a load of Scousers. You throw all them together, it's gonna kick off. Certainly when you got Nate Diaz there. Nate Diaz is there with all the Stockton crew and all his, 209 massive, right? They don't mess around either. They're not going to take any shit. And on top of that, you've got Kevin Kevin Holland standing there, black man, right? He doesn't care, right? He'll take them all on by himself. And that is exactly what happened. Now, we still don't know all the details, right? It has been shrouded in mystery, but we do know there was like a 50-person brawl. Diaz is there rolling deep. Khamzat's there. He's got a massive crew. And Kevin Holland was just swinging punches left, right, and center, by all accounts, on his own, which is awesome. So shout out Kevin Holland for that one. But because of that, the press conference was cancelled. Now, the saying is there's no such thing as bad news, right? But I thought at the time, wow, that's not good for the pay-per-view. It's not good for the sport. But lo and behold, of course, a thing like that happens. It's being reported on every clickbait website, every MMA Mania, MMA Junkie, TMZ, you name it. They were talking about it. So in a weird way, it was tremendous. It was the best conference ever in many ways. But that isn't where the madness ended. That is not where it ended, of course, because we're only on Thursday. Friday is the weigh-in day. And now the main event was Khamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz. A lot of people weren't happy with that matchup for some reason. Nate Diaz is one of the best. He's a great fighter, long career. Why can't he fight another top contender? But still, I digress. They were supposed to fight each other, but Khamzat waltzes onto the scale on Friday morning, 7.5 pounds over. Okay? And he pissed a lot of people off.
I come here and fuck everybody.
He did, because he didn't seem too remorseful. I mean, so what? It is what it is. At that point, you got to own it. And that's what he did. I think he stuck both fingers up at everyone there. Anyone talking crap, anyone talking smack. He didn't care. And Khamzat Chimaev, whilst being a fan favourite, and he still is a fan favourite, took on this persona of the bad guy, of the Bond villain, which is just the perfect thing to do, you know, because he's going to be polarising. You're going to love him or you're going to hate him. So, after that, there's going to be a fallout. Nate Diaz is allowed to turn down a fight if his opponent doesn't make weight. And that's what he did. And rightly so. Because a lot of the time history has shown when people miss weight, they then go on to win the fight because it gives them an advantage. Or maybe they haven't pushed themselves as hard in the weight cut. Who knows what it is? But still, that's what the trend shows. And Nate Diaz, rightly so, said no.
We punked his bitch ass in the back here, and now he don't know how to make weight, you know what I'm saying?
So if Khamzat overweight and Nate Diaz saying, no, I'm not going to fight him, that left the matchmakers scrambling. And what they did, they had to rearrange the top 3 fights. Of course, it's supposed to be Khamzat versus Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz fought Tony Ferguson. Back and forth battle. Diaz was winning most of it. Tony had some moments. Nate Diaz won via guillotine, I think, in round 4 or 5. Round 4, I think. Then, of course, they mixed it up. Khamzat took on Kevin Holland, threw him around like a rag doll because, you know, they went to high-five each other, and then Khamzat shot in on him. Bit of a, you know, I mean, who cares, right? You're supposed to defend yourself at all times. And then Daniel Rodriguez took on Li Jinliang as well. But from top to bottom, that event, yeah, bit of a mental one. Okay, next up we have Alex Pereira knocking out Israel Adesanya. UFC 281 in November. Look, listen, we all know the story, okay? Pereira had knocked him out twice in kickboxing, okay? But this is mixed martial arts. And Izzy was very, very confident. You got to remember, Izzy at middleweight, undefeated. Only lost once in MMA, taking on the light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz, and gave a good account of himself. Now, Izzy's one of the biggest stars in the promotion. Right from the start, when he walks out, the man oozes charisma. The walkouts are sensational. The breakdancing is cool, you know. He's got flair. You know, he's got style, he's got pizzazz, and he can fight his goddamn ass off inside the octagon. And he just run roughshod throughout the entire middleweight division. In fact, so much so, he was now starting to lap the entire division because no one could get near him. Now, that's why we know also that Pereira was kind of fast-tracked to that title. Listen, first of all, he has some tremendous wins, okay? And, of course, he'd beaten Izzy twice in kickboxing. So there it is. He's got the history, he's got the storyline, that sells. But he earned the right, knocking out Sean Strickland in the first round. And we were all kind of intrigued as to how this one was going to go down. And listen, I'll be honest, Pereira was kind of down. It was 3-1 going into round 5. Now listen, Pereira had some moments. Probably round 2 was his biggest one. Izzy rocked him a few times at the end of, I think it was the first round. Caught him potentially after the bell. I don't think it was. He threw the shot whilst it was before the bell had sounded. It landed after, so, you know, no harm there. Then we saw some grappling back and forth from the two kickboxers. And then in round 5, it looked like Izzy was going to get the job done. But Pereira dug deep. His cornerman screamed and shouted at him and motivated him, said, listen, you need the knockout. And that's what he got. He went out there. He didn't knock him out. It was a standing knockout. It was a TKO. The referee stepped in to save Izzy from any more punishment. But it was shocking because Izzy's been so dominant. Izzy was so confident. Izzy kind of just did away with any kind of threat of Alex Pereira. Said he's not on my level. This is mixed martial arts. I'm going to show you. But after quite the reign of dominance for multiple years, Israel Adesanya is not the champ. Long live the king, Alex Pereira. And I can't wait to see that rematch because it's going to go down soon. All right, moving on to UFC 282, which just went down in December in Las Vegas. Chaos at 205 pounds. Look, listen, ever since John Jones stepped away and the Jones versus Cormier kind of era ended in 2018, that light heavyweight championship has kind of been like a hot potato, being passed around to multiple people. First of all, it was Jan Blachowicz. Then it was Glover Teixeira. Then Yuri Prochazka defeated Glover. Okay. And then the fight was so good that went down in Singapore earlier this year. I was there. Wild fight, back and forth. And it was so good that they were rewarded with doing it again. It's a rematch. Let's go. Yuri Prochazka, the champ, trained his ass off and then blew out his shoulder. And Dana White said, probably the worst shoulder injury that they've seen in the history of the UFC. Now, this is where you have to respect Yuri Prochazka because a lot of people, they want to hang on to that belt. They don't want to risk losing it. They might never get it back again. The matchup that they have to face, they might be too difficult. It might not be a complimentary matchup. But Yuri Prochazka proclaims to be a samurai. He acts like a samurai. He talks like a samurai. Dresses like a samurai. And he follows the Bushido code because that was a straight up gangster move.
I have to say sorry to Glover. I canceled that fight, so short to fight, and that's life. So congratulations to Ankalaev and Blachowicz for a title chance, but still I feel like a champion, and after I will be back, I will come for that title and more.
He just said, look, listen, the division needs to keep moving forward. So I will relinquish the belt that he just fought, blood, sweat and tears, gave up a piece of himself to win. He just gave it up so that the division can move on because he knows, or he thinks he knows, that he's that good that when he comes back, it doesn't matter who has the belt. He will be taking it back. And if you don't respect that, then I don't know what you will respect because that was just sensational. Now, of course, when he relinquished the belt, and he was out of the title fight with Glover Teixeira, they're going to bring someone else in. So they brought in former champ Jan Blachowicz taking on Magomed Ankalaev for a vacant light heavyweight title fight. And then after all the dust had settled, when UFC 282 was over, we still had a vacant light heavyweight title fight because Jan Blachowicz, Magomed went to a draw. Jan got off to a good start, landing some good shots, using the leg kicks beautifully. Had the Dagestani limping all over the place, but then he turned to the wrestling as the rounds 3, 4, 5 started to take over. Round 5 took him down, held him down for a long amount of time, potentially won a 10-8, and that is why it was ultimately scored a draw. So it was kind of an anticlimax, you know. I mean, Yuri is just amazing. He'll be back soon. But after all that, there's still no champ. The next pay-per-view, UFC 283, going down in Rio de Janeiro, is Glover Teixeira taking on Jamal Hill, or potentially Anthony Smith, who's training with Jamal Hill. I mean, that whole situation is just, it's amazing. It's hilarious. It's amazing. It's fascinating. But still, madness at 205. Yeah, it was pretty shocking. Okay, and what do I have as the most shocking moment of last year? And it wasn't maybe the most shocking, but my biggest moment, I am, of course, talking about UFC 278. August, Leon Rocky Edwards knocks out the pound-for-pound #1, the welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman. Right, listen, that might have sounded kind of a backhanded compliment saying it was shocking or whatever, you know. Listen, I believe in Leon. He's an incredible champion, and I think he's got a very, very good chance of winning the rematch. But going into that one, Kamaru Usman was beating everybody. He was in his 6th title fight defense. A lot of people were starting to say, listen, he is the greatest welterweight of all time, potentially the greatest of all time. He should be known for what George St. Pierre was known. As I say, the best welterweight that we've ever had. You know, he was starting to knock people out. Of course, the wrestling prowess is always there. He's a great athlete. He's very humble. He talks well on the microphone, you know, but he fights his ass off. 2 fights with Masvidal. First one, 50-45. Then second one, boom, knocked him out cold. And of course, he'd already beaten Leon Edwards as well. This was a rematch from back in the day. Much like Izzy was starting to lap the competition. We know he had a few fights with Masvidal and Colby. But this one started off well for Leon, then went tremendously well for Usman. We know in round one, Leon went out there, tripped him, took him down, got on top, took his back, threatened the rear naked choke, and it was like, wow, what a sensational opening round for the contender. But Usman showed his championship spirit and used the wrestling to good effect. Took him down, took him down, took him down. That's what he did. Took him to Wrestling Town. Up and down they went all day long for 3 rounds. And it looked like Leon was starting to fatigue. He was getting tired. And at the end of round 4, his coach, much like Alex Pereira's coach, just went off on him and said, come on, what are you doing?
Listen, stop feeling sorry for your fucking self. Well, come on then. What's wrong with you? You're too fucking damn. You gotta pull the shit out of fire.
Stay sure.
Come on, Leon, man. You got it, man. Come on.
You got this. Sharpshooter. Press his down.
Come on, Leon.
Let's
go.
You had him, man. Okay, do it again. Okay?
Come on, shit on him.
It was sensational and it will give you goosebumps. And they went out there and Usman was having a good round. And we had about a minute left in this title fight in Salt Lake City. And then there it came. Boom. Shin on chin. The head kick heard around the world. One shot, headshot, kill shot, done. That was it. And we got a new king. We got a new champ. England, Great Britain has its second ever UFC champion. And I am so happy for him, the nation, all his fans, his friends, his family, everyone in attendance and everyone that didn't believe him. You know, it's unbelievable. This sport, you can never take anything for granted, you know, and that is why we love it, because it's so unpredictable. So many crazy things happen, you know, and again, I'm not taking away from his win. You know, Usman's an incredible fighter and they're going to fight again, hopefully in March in London. Still waiting on that announcement, mind you. But still, there it is. Leon Edwards knocking out the champ. Knocking out the champ, the pound for pound #1, okay? In a fight that a lot of people weren't giving him a chance. They weren't giving him credit. They weren't picking him to win. Right, but the self-belief, the skill that he has, the power in that left head kick, my God. And Leon did a fantastic job of setting it up as well. So just a tremendous knockout in the highest stakes possible against the pound for pound #1 on the planet at the time. Leon Edwards, take a bow. But there was 5 shocking moments that happened in 2022. We're in 2023. The first fight hasn't even happened yet. It does this weekend. Nasruddin Imavov taking on Kelvin Gastelum. That's going to be a good one. And then the week after, we have the first pay-per-view of the year. Hopefully this year, we get some more shocks. We get some more upsets. We get some more wild stories that we can talk about. But until those happen, and until you see me again, you guys take care. Subscribe and ring the bell, and I'll see you soon.